Welcome back. And where is the bottom of Bitcoin and the overall crypto markets? We are now hearing bottom calls from people like Anthony Pompliano saying Bitcoin is somewhere around the bottom as we have now hit the under $100,000 range in Bitcoin. We're past the 550-day mark after the Bitcoin halving, which historically is the last top of the cycle that we're going to see until the next cycle. We are also not even close to the capitulation phase in the cycle. But in today's video, we're going to be exploring where is the bottom? When will we know we are at the bottom of the market? Because this is what this channel is about. We are not top callers, we're not bottom callers, but sometimes we do call the top and bottom of the market. And so far, we have been correct. We called the top of the market in the middle of the year, and that was the macro top, because we are seeing, including Anthony Pompliano's company, which is going to be BRR on the stock market, it is down, fairly substantially since they announced. They're not fully merged yet into their public company, but we've seen, like with Nakamoto, with MicroStrategy, significant declines in the prices. And this is exactly what we have been laying out on this channel literally all year, and all of our viewers have been way ahead of the entire curve. So make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. That way you never miss a new video. We upload every single day of the year to bring you the latest happening in the financial world. So also give the video a free thumbs up, because thumbs up are free, crypto is not, and losing money in the markets is not free either. And we are here to make money in the markets and win. So let's start today's video right here with Peter Brandt. Now, as we've been discussing very extensively on this channel, right, in my view, at the end of 2025, we are in the anxiety and denial phase of the cycle. We are very steadily moving towards the panic phase and then the capitulation phase. And these are, as time goes on, the market has come under 100,000 just once, and people are already buying this dip saying we're at the bottom of the market. But if you actually understand how these cycles work, and I get it, there's a lot of people out here that are preaching to all of you, there is no more cycle. We have an extended cycle, the M2 money supply cycle, the business cycle, blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is the Bitcoin cycle is literally coded into Bitcoin. And so if you believe in Bitcoin and believe in the hard coding of the actual algorithm of Bitcoin and how it works, then you will understand the 4-year cycle is not dead. The 4-year cycle is not over. And we are actually tracking the 4-year cycle very accurately based on this chart right in front of us. And so Peter Brandt posted this and saying, meow, how high can the cat bounce go? And I do agree with Peter Brandt here. I do think that we are seeing what they call dead cat bounces, which is basically it just bounces, right? I mean, it bounces and then goes straight down. We are in the downtrend of the market, and everybody wants to still be bullish, but we are here to not feel bullish or feel bearish. We are here to make money in the markets, and we are here to be on the right side of the markets. It doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong. What matters is what my portfolio is doing. And all the people who have been saying, Cryptoviser, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, the cycle, the extended cycle, the M2 money supply, we're still in a bull market. They literally have been wrong. All the MicroStrategy bulls since $350 and $400, when we've been telling you on this channel, I told my viewers back in September, I said that MicroStrategy at a minimum would hit $220 based on the NAV price, right? The MNAV compression. We are below that price. And so everybody who said that that thesis was not correct, they have been wrong 100% of the time. And if you guys have been watching my videos for any length of time, you know that we have not been incorrect. We have been correct on this channel. And why is that so important? Well, it confirms the thesis that we are rotating into a bear market. That's what this is confirming. But we're getting a lot of bottom calls, not just from Anthony Pompliano, from a lot of other people. We'll get to those in just a few minutes. But let's start here. Comic on X said, not one Bitcoin treasury company bought the dip under $100,000 or under $90,000 or $85,000 or $81,000. And this is completely true. And this is one of the things to kind of show you that this whole thesis about these Bitcoin treasury companies, about how the Bitcoin price is going to keep going up, this is totally false. It's not based on the data. I mean, MicroStrategy, for example, they've been buying 120,000, 115,000, 110,000, 111,000, 117,000, 113,000, $123,000. They've been literally buying the top of the market all year. And now Bitcoin retraces 20 to 30% from its all-time record highs. No purchases under $100,000. Now, by the time you're watching this video, there may be purchases, but why didn't they purchase during the initial drop? Why didn't they purchase during the second drop? Well, guys, the thesis and this whole money grab, I think it's coming to an end. The liquidity is drying up. Jim Chanos even said, "Wait, did MicroStrategy not buy any Bitcoin last week during the sell-off? Isn't that when they should be buying more?" Yeah, but maybe they think that it's going lower, or maybe they're just top buyers, which is totally fine. Guys, if they want to buy the top, let them buy the top of the market. That's not what we're doing. That's not sound investing. Over the long period of time, if Bitcoin continues to go up over, the arc of like 10 years or more, MicroStrategy is going to be totally fine, and all the investors will be totally fine. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the stock price is going to be fine, because they're going to continue to sell shares and dilute shareholders to the tune of, 10 billion total shares. And they're still only at about 1 billion shares right now. So they still have 9 billion shares to go. Meanwhile, this user on X said, for those that need to hear this, oversold RSI, which is relative strength index, means absolutely nothing. Do you know that RSI does what RSI does in a bear market stage 4? It stays oversold and the price keeps falling. As I have been explaining based on the Bitcoin halving chart in previous cycles, which everybody wants to keep referencing, from the top of the market to the bottom of the market is 1 year, almost to the day. And so we've been falling for basically almost 2 months now, and everybody wants to call the bottom. Like, oh no, this is the bottom of the market. We need to start buying now. No. They want you to keep buying. They want you to bid up the market so that you can be their exit liquidity. Because we have heard, like quite literally, from YouTubers, from the big accounts, from the influencers, that they need one more pump to get out of the market. So they're trying to pump it so that they can get out of the market on your dime. You are the exit liquidity. I'm not going to be exit liquidity. I mean, guys, most of the people on my channel, we sold months ago, right? So now we're basically profiting on the downside. We are trading the market that we have, not the market that we want. And this is the most critical point to understand in today's video. Because as an investor, understanding that we trade the market that we have, not the market that we want, this is the most fundamental aspect of making money in the markets. Because here's the deal, guys. What we're about to cover with the digital asset treasury companies is the MicroStrategy bulls and the Metaplanet bulls. They are ignoring the warning signs. We are listening to the warning signs and saying, wait, this is what is most likely going to occur with the markets in the next few months. Okay, let's position our portfolios appropriately. They are whining and saying, go to JP Morgan and close your account because JP Morgan is trying to manipulate the price of MicroStrategy. They're trying to short MicroStrategy. It's like, guys, JP Morgan literally just built like a $5 billion building, and they invest something like $40 billion in just New York City's economy every single year. That's not even taking into account the rest of the country. You think that your account and you whining and closing your little tiny account is going to mean anything to JP Morgan? You guys get it. The people who watch my videos, you guys get it. But these are the people that we're trading against. They really think that Jamie Dimon gives a shit, that they're upset that JP Morgan put out a research report that says they're probably going to be delisted from certain indices. And this is going to cause billions and billions of dollars of outflow from the MicroStrategy stock if this happens. Now, is it going to happen? I don't know. But the likelihood that it does happen, that they get delisted, is very high. And if that happens, there's going to be billions of dollars of outflow. And so if we know that the likelihood of that happening is high, that the likelihood that there's going to be billions of dollars of outflow is high, that Bitcoin is rotating into a bear market is going on, Well, why would I just keep saying, let's buy the dip, guys, let's buy the dip? No, we're going to bet against the price going higher. Because even if that doesn't happen, Michael Saylor is going to continue to sell shares on the open market, which is going to continue to dilute the shares of the shareholders, which is going to push the price down. And so my target is no longer $220 on MicroStrategy. It's under $100. And meanwhile, you get a lot of this, right? Can't wait to see this guy get liquidated. And I don't know which tweet it's in response to, but it doesn't matter. We're hearing a lot of this with the Bitcoin bulls, the MicroStrategy bulls. We heard it with the ICP bulls recently. Oh, Cryptoviser is going to get liquidated. Well, just to FYI, all of you, and you guys know this if you are investors, right? Is that someone using put options to short the market? That means it's impossible to liquidate them. And that's true, because the only amount that they can lose is what they put in to the premium to buy that contract into a put option. So the idea of shorting doesn't literally mean just selling shares that you don't own into the market. It could also mean buying put options, and put options, there's no such thing as liquidation. So when the bulls are like, let's liquidate them, let's short squeeze them, they literally have no idea what the hell's going on in this market. And that's who we're trading against. Like, quite literally. They're going to keep bidding the market up. And as they bid the market up, we continue to bet against the market going higher, because every little bounce that we go up is just them trying to buy up the market. But we know the trajectory is lower. And until they capitulate, which we're nowhere near the capitulation phase just yet. And by the way, people ask me all the time, Cryptoviser, how do we know when we're at the capitulation phase? Well, based on being on this channel and analyzing the markets for a very long time now, I don't know when the capitulation phase is going to be. When will you know that you're in the capitulation phase? Believe it, you will know, right? When FTX collapsed and every influencer went bearish, and we were preparing for this on this channel, right? Not that FTX was going to collapse, but that there was going to be a capitulation event, and FTX collapsing was that capitulation event. Everybody was so fearful. Oh my God, Grayscale's going down, Binance is going to go down, Coinbase is next. Which one is it going to be? And I mean, it was 24 hours a day of panic in the markets of Coinbase is going to go bankrupt. That's it. If FTX went bankrupt, Coinbase is going bankrupt, and then Binance is going to go bankrupt, and Grayscale is going to have to liquidate. That was the bottom of the market. That was capitulation. And you know what we did? We bought that bottom. And so I don't know when capitulation is going to be, but guys, all of these digital asset treasury companies here are part of the stock indices list of treasuries they're considering excluding from some of these indices. They don't want to include investment vehicles in their indexes, and they're considering those firms whose business activity of holding digital assets as de facto investment vehicles. And by the way, it doesn't matter what you think. This is, in my view, it's kind of already decided, okay? And so if they're already talking about potentially moving these companies out of these indexes, they're most likely going to be moved out of the indexes. And so why would I keep buying in instead of betting against, right? Because it's a gamble. But if you know what the data is, you know that even the bulls of these digital asset treasury companies are trying to throw this off like, oh, that's not a big deal. Let's go tell them that everything's going to be okay. Michael Saylor posted a thread on X that, you know, they're not an investment vehicle and everything's going to be fine. Like, that's going to really matter to the MSCI, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, the likelihood that they're going to get delisted is very high. And so we're taking that data and we're trading the market in front of us, not the market that we want. Meanwhile, Metaplanet continues to draw more credit facility, more money from their credit facility, which is effectively debt, $30 million for further Bitcoin acquisitions. Meanwhile, if we actually look at the Metaplanet stock, pump and dump. And people are like, well, Cryptoviser, look how low we are. We're at the bottom of the market. It's like, no, we're not. They're continuing to take out debt in a downtrending Bitcoin market. The price of Metaplanet has come down 80% since the middle of the year, and Bitcoin went to all-time record highs during that period of time. So what's going to happen to the stock price when Bitcoin price drops further than it already has? Well, that brings us to Anthony Pompliano, who believes Bitcoin is somewhere near the bottom. We're going to play this on 1.5 speed. I mean, it's really incredible that they really believe that we're at the bottom already, even though the Bitcoin halving chart clearly shows us we're nowhere near the bottom. Let's listen to Anthony Pompliano. And make sure you guys, by the way, are subscribed to this channel. That way you never miss a new video. And also give the video a free thumbs up. Let's listen in.
I heard something pretty interesting. Matt Siegel over at Van Eck said, well, Bitcoin's, in terms of Bitcoin's volatility, has been cut in half over the last year or two. And so if that's the case, if we're used to 80% drawdowns, maybe now the drawdowns are about 40%, right? You would expect that if the volatility has been cut in half. Well, we just saw a 36, 37% drawdown. And so I do think that as volatility compresses, people will be disappointed to the upside because it's not going to have these blow-off tops that they expected. But also there may be some, safety in terms of these 80% drawdowns are gone as well. And so I tend to think that we probably are somewhere around the bottoming. Again, if you see the Fear and Greed Index at, I think it was 8 for Bitcoin, 6 in equities, that tells me that you can't stay there that long. And so I think that we might just go sideways for a while here and then start to kind of grind back up over the next couple of weeks.
And so if we look at the psychological market cycle chart, that sounds to me like denial. Oh, well, based on what Van Eck said, that there's less upside volatility. That means there's going to be less downside volatility. But Anthony, how can that be when everybody is still so bullish on the Bitcoin price and in literal denial that we are moving into a bear market? And by the way, bear markets don't just occur over the course of 1 week's drawdown or 1 month's drawdown. Typically, bull markets last quite a while, and so do bear markets. Let's continue listening in.
Anthony, one of the big questions has always been how much leverage there is in the Bitcoin universe and whether there gets to be a point, and I don't know what the inflection point is, where there are enough margin calls that it effectively becomes this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy on the downside. Where do you stand on that? I mean, obviously, we talked to Michael Saylor just about a week and a half ago. He obviously represents a huge part of the market, too. Also, there's a number of ETFs now that represent a big part of the market. So how do you see that piece of it?
Yeah, well, there's a lot more leverage in the system on October 8th and 9th, right before the big liquidation. And so I think that, again, part of that healthy reset is that we went from higher degrees of open interest and leverage to today something that is much more normal. And I think that, again, that fear and greed index is a great signal as to how bullish people are. And,
Okay, first of all, the fear and greed index is based on completely subjective analytics, right? I mean, but either way, you're telling me Metaplanet now drawing $130 million in more debt to buy more Bitcoin as their stock price is already significantly down by 80% since the middle of the year and Bitcoin has barely dropped, that we're already at the bottom. Guys, this is who we're trading against. And by the way, Anthony Pompliano's company bought Bitcoin at over $100,000. So they're already underwater.
There's always the quote of you want to buy when there's blood in the streets. I don't think I've ever seen the equity fear and greed index at 6. The Bitcoin one going to 8 is very, very rare. And so I think that you're not going to see high degrees of leverage whenever you get that fear. And so that gives me great confidence that we're probably not that far from having bottomed.
So now we have literal Wall Street CEOs, because that's what Anthony Pompliano is, saying that because the fear and greed index, again, a completely subjective. I mean, you could look at one fear and greed index and then go look at another one and another one and another one, and they'll have different scores. So we have Wall Street CEOs saying, well, the fear and greed index is at 6, and we've never seen it there before. So clearly we're at the bottom. Guys, we're nowhere near the bottom. Like nowhere near the bottom of the market. Maybe we are. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be. Maybe we're going to have more than a dead cat bounce. But guys, I mean, if you look at the Bitcoin halving tracker, everything has been going literally as we expect based on previous cycle movements, right? Not to the day, but basically within, 50 days of each other. And so this tells me that we're going further down. And now we have Tom Lee also talking about that we may fall to $2,500, but then we're going to have a super cycle immediately right after. By January, we're going to go to $9,000 in Ethereum. Ethereum barely passed its all-time record high. And if we look at previous, like other cryptos that have hit their all-time record high barely and then come back down, they go into multi-year bear markets. Let's listen to what Tom Lee says here.
Yeah, I think, in the near term, there is downside, maybe to 2,500, but that's minor compared to the upside of trying to discount a super cycle. So we think ETH can be 7,000, 9,000 by the end of January, and that's a huge recovery move, but that's also pretty typical of what could happen in the fourth quarter.
Now, I'm not denying that there could be movement, okay, especially after the fourth quarter. You know, a lot of people are doing tax loss harvesting and then they end up buying back at the beginning of the year. But are we going to go well above all-time record highs? It's possible. It's definitely possible. And especially outside of Bitcoin, Ethereum has really been underperforming a lot. And I think that there may be some conversation about the safety play if Bitcoin is dropping so precipitously and people want to stay in assets versus stable coins or the dollar. Maybe there will be a rotation into Ethereum. But I don't know. I mean, this is all a real big risk, especially as, you know, especially if you look at the AI trade is also starting to unwind. And that brings us to the AI situation. Now, we're just hearing that Trump has signed an executive order launching an AI initiative being compared to another project called the Genesis Mission. Now, effectively, this executive order launched a federal effort to supercharge AI intelligence or AI research, development, and scientific applications, unveiling the new Genesis mission to support American efforts on AI. The order charts out a series of steps to expand computational resources, increase access to federal data sets, and move toward impactful real-world applications, and particularly in scientific fields, saying the order says the Genesis mission will dramatically accelerate scientific discovery, strengthen national security, secure energy dominance, enhance workforce productivity, and multiply the return on taxpayer investment into research and development. Now, again, a lot of the conversation is, why is this happening? Is this because we need more energy to power these data centers? Is this because, you know, the US is so far behind? Is this because the money is starting to dry up? I mean, just remember, OpenAI's CEO just said recently that, and then walked back these comments about the need for federal bailout or backstop for the funding. And that then they walked back those comments. But did he mean it? Probably. And so NVIDIA, we also have a situation here where they've exited China. It's going back and forth. Now we're hearing Meta may go to Google for their chip, or some other company. I think it was Google. And what we're starting to see is massive drawdowns from these overinflated valuations, right? Over $5 trillion for NVIDIA. And the data center companies like Iris Energy and Bitfarms and Cipher Mining, they had a little bit of a pop after that executive order was signed, but it seems like the trajectory is still down. Like everything has kind of been overheated in the beginning and middle of 2025 into the end of the year. And that brings us to Bitfarms, because we've been talking about Bitfarms quite often. And Bitfarms has kind of been detached from the rest of the AI narrative play, which I think we have a few more tweets about in a few minutes. But really, Bitfarms is one that we've been following very closely. And I think that it's important that we really stay close to this story, because I do think that there's great opportunity here. Maybe not right this second, maybe in the future, maybe it is now. That's up for you to decide in your own portfolio. But Ben, the CEO of Bitfarms, posted on X this, saying, "Good afternoon, farmers," aka holders of the stock or supporters. "Glad to be back on X after my blackout period. Because so much happened since I entered blackout, I would like to provide my thoughts on the market in the interim." Basically, blackout period is usually when they're working on things, or there's going to be earnings call or stuff like that on Wall Street. He said the macro environment for the last few weeks has been obviously weak, but when you're dealing with multi-year infrastructure projects and decade-long investment cycles, short-term market conditions do not impact long-term fundamentals. And I would agree completely with what Ben is saying here. You know, I post my videos on a delay on purpose, and people will come on the channel, they'll say, "But Cryptoviser, Iris Energy is $46 when I'm watching the video, and it says here $45. What's going on?" And it's like, these are like, how low IQ can you get? Like, we're talking about the macro environment. We're talking about multi-month movements in the markets, and they're worried about the intraday movements in the prices. Most of these people we block on the channel because it's just, I mean, the IQ level is just so low. That's not what this channel is about. This channel is about macro investing. And I would agree with what he's saying here. But he said to the contrary, panic in the markets, like we have been seeing for a few weeks, is exactly what is needed to test support levels, hit a reset in charts, establish new entry points, cut interest rates, start QE, and go risk on into midterms, which I strongly believe is coming in the months ahead. This is very bullish setup for 2026. And I would completely agree. Not just bullish for Bitfarms, but bullish for the whole market. We need a strong drawdown before we can start moving back higher. And clearly, Ben watches the Cryptoviser podcast. So make sure you guys do give this video a thumbs up, especially if you're a Bitfarmer. Anyway, moving right along. He said, in times like these, it's important to take a step back and see the forest through the trees. Take a look at the charts attached that show the universe of publicly traded companies that I'm following in HPC and AI quarter to date and year to date. Again, the macro, not day to day, right? Again, the day to day traders, these are the people that we're trading against, where they're like, Cryptoviser, the prices are higher since you recorded this video. We're back in a bull market. It's like, it's so exhausting. It really is. It really is. Anyway, moving right along. As the time of the writing, this is where we basically flat quarter to date in Bitfarms, and we're up 73% year to date. Almost everyone is up year to date, but quarter to date performance has pulled back across the board, but specifically in Bitfarms, as we've covered on this channel. Emerging markets like HPC and AI are incredibly volatile, and without volatility, you would have no reward as an investor. I would agree. Obviously, you guys know, more risk, more reward, but there's also more risk, so you may not get the reward. That's important to understand. The lower the risk, the lower the reward, but the more likely you're going to get that reward, right? That's why a lot of people like to just do passive index funds where they're getting 6 to 10% a year, and if they get 5%, great. At least they didn't lose any money. Where most people in crypto, they want hundreds of percent returns every single day. Moving right along. So the CEO of Bitfarms, Ben, continues in saying, case in point is take a look at Amazon, who has had one of the biggest data center businesses in the world, but diversification is one of the largest retailers in the world. They have one of the best performing quarter to date, up 2.7%, but they're at the bottom of the barrel year to date, up only 2.6%. With risk comes reward. Well, just what we were just talking about. And year to date, Bitfarms is outperforming the biggest names: Google, Nvidia, Oracle, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and Bitcoin. Interesting. Why? Well, it's because they're solving a very valuable problem, the bottleneck that is slowing down the growth of HPC and AI, and the value created in solving the problem is transformative. At Bitfarms, Ben says, we believe the biggest limitation between humans and computer data is the interface. We also believe that improving the interface drives humanity forward. In the early days, you had to write computer programs with index cards that you punched holes in and had to arrange in meticulous order. When programming went from human language, it significantly improved the interface and unleashed a wave of productivity and adoption. Ben continues, saying, when people first using the internet, everything had to be shared directly. When Google started crawling web pages and made internet actually searchable, it changed the interface, again, unleashing another wave of productivity and adoption. When Apple first introduced the iPhone, it changed the interface and how we interact on the go. The internet went from something only accessible at a desk available in the palm of your hand to whenever and wherever you needed it. This, again, unleashed the wave of productivity and adoption. With AI, you no longer need to understand how computers think. Computers now understand how you think. This is by far the biggest leap in the interface yet, and we haven't even scratched the surface of what's possible and how AI will be deployed, utilized, and adopted. This is a revolution that will play out over years and decades, not days. Again, the macro, zooming out. You know, I told my viewers recently that I've offloaded quite a large portion of my Bitfarms portfolio. And a lot of this was to take profits because I understand the cycle is going to go up, the cycle is going to come down, the cycle is going to go up, the cycle is going to come down. Owning the stock doesn't mean that you're only only bullish. You can still be bearish and still just hold a stock because you believe in the longer term. And not holding a stock or crypto for that matter. I mean, like, I'm basically not holding any Bitcoin when I'm recording this video, but I'm still bullish on the Bitcoin thesis over the longer period of time. I just believe that we're due for a corrective phase based on all of the the people that we're literally trading against that don't believe that we're in a bear market, don't believe that we're moving into a bear market, and believe that the market bottomed after just basically a few weeks of drop, barely even testing the MicroStrategy buy levels, right? And so that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at the macro environment. And somebody like Ben, clearly based on this post and based on a lot of the conversations that he's had with people in the industry publicly, he understands the macro. He understands the multi-year conversation that we need to have. Other companies like Iris Energy, they may understand the macro, but I don't believe, I mean, guys, if you take the CEO of any of these large AI pivot companies that were Bitcoin mining companies and put their CEO next to Ben, Ben is clearly way more intelligent than they are, okay? And I've never met Ben, I've never had a conversation with Ben, but you can tell that he is a very high IQ individual who understands the long term. I mean, guys, at the depths of like the Bitcoin mining space, in 2024, Riot Platforms was trying to take over Bitfarms, and Ben was like, "Nope, not happening, not happening." And they were offering higher, like a higher share price than Bitfarms was even worth, and Bitfarms continued to perform worse from a stock market perspective after that deal was being fought. And Ben was like, "Nope, we're not doing that. We are not selling," because he understood what Bitfarms had, and he understood what he had as a CEO of a company to be able to build out. Not many CEOs would be able to do that, okay? And so there's something to be said about that. And he understands the macro, I think, to a different degree than these other companies. And this is where I am very bullish, because you want to make sure that the leader of the company, I mean, I'm sure you guys have worked for companies or seen companies where, like, Chipotle, take for example. Chipotle can't get people in their door, and they're like, well, instead of let's improve the quality, improve the customer service, maybe lower the prices a little bit because they've gone up almost double since the pandemic. He's like, let's introduce a new sauce. Let's introduce chimichurri sauce. That's going to bring everybody in the door. No, it's not. I mean, this is very low IQ kind of implementation of things, right? This is a bad CEO. And by the way, the previous CEO, like the most recent CEO of Chipotle, came from Taco Bell. So you take a company that has the lowest quality ingredients in food, right, in a fast food, and you put them in where customers expect high quality food, right, which is Chipotle. And what is going to happen? They're going to make it into Taco Bell, and that's basically what they've done. And that's why people don't go there anymore, because they lost their customer base based on their decisions to become like Taco Bell. The same thing is going on here in the Bitcoin mining to AI space. There's going to be companies that just want to get the deals. They just want to get deals. Even if the deals don't benefit you or the shareholder, like thinking about MicroStrategy, what they're doing by selling shares on the open market and creating all these preferred shares to raise money to buy Bitcoin, this is not good for you as a shareholder of the company. And so eventually, when the shareholders realize that, they get out. And so they're getting out as they're selling more shares in the open market. That further declines the value of the company / the value of the stock / any holder's valuation. And they just lose and lose and lose and lose. This should be very obvious. But to a lot of people, it's not. They're like, oh, well, this is amazing. They're buying Bitcoin. Wow. And it's like, yeah, but you can buy Bitcoin. Yeah, but Michael Saylor's doing it. And it's like, yeah, but you can buy Bitcoin yourself. Yeah, but Michael Saylor is a genius. And it's like, okay, he may be a genius, but you could still buy the Bitcoin. Cryptoviser, you don't understand. And it's like, clearly I don't. Anyway, back to Ben, who I think is a very smart individual, thinking about the macro, thinking about the zoomed out picture of how they can make this not only sustainable from a business perspective, but sustainable from a growth perspective, sustainable from an investment perspective, because each of these things collectively matter. You can't grow if you don't have an investor base, and you can't invest in a company if the company has no pathway to growth. So yeah, bottom line is Ben, very smart individual, and you can see that here. He said this is a revolution that will play out over years and decades, not days. Moving right along, he says, so while mainstream news puts out articles after article comparing AI to the dot-com bubble, you may ask yourself, did the internet and e-commerce peak at the dot-com bubble? No, the industry is worth exponentially more today than it was worth during the peak of the dot-com era. And this is something that we talk about, right? I believe that AI at the end of 2025 is in a bubble, generally speaking, right? That the valuations are so high. The circular financing is so crazy that it's due for a pullback. But that doesn't mean that AI is going anywhere. That doesn't mean the need for compute, the need for data centers, the need for energy is going away. It may slow down in terms of the growth of it for a short period of time and the investment or investability in it, but it's not going anywhere. And that's the important separation to understand, which Ben outlines here very clearly. So he said, if you could freeze time and walk up to a wave, you could stand so close to it that you would only see bubbles. But that's a matter of perspective. Take a step back, change your perspective, and you would only see the wave. This is very common at the beginning of fundamental paradigm shifts because capital is trying to position itself effectively amidst a new reality at the same time that it is trying to understand the same new reality. He says, while some companies be overvalued as capital tries to simultaneously understand and position itself in this paradigm shift, yes. Does that mean we are in an AI bubble and AI has peaked? Absolutely not. I would necessarily disagree with that. I do think that AI is in a bubble and that there is a peak, but that doesn't mean that the peak is forever, right? It just means for this period of time, whether that's 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, who knows? He says, the reality is that while many people use AI daily, the amount of value created by consumers pales in comparison to the value that will be created by enterprises when they apply AI. And while most corporations are talking about how they will apply AI to reduce costs, increase productivity, or restructure workflows, most of these are in pilot stages. And some of them aren't working at all, by the way. Compared to what will be done in the coming 5 to 10 years, it doesn't even round to 1% or rounds to 0. That is the wave. He said it's important to keep perspective in mind during paradigm shifts. Lots of money can and will be made by flipping and day trading, but true wealth is created through vision, to see out years in the future and executing against a vision with conviction. Now, he continues saying the current situation reminds me of Mark Zuckerberg when he was offered $1 billion for Facebook by Yahoo. Yahoo wanted Facebook because they saw its potential and wanted a great deal. Mark could have made a bunch of money in a very short period of time, but he never really entertained the billion. At the time, people thought he was crazy, but he wasn't. They just didn't have the vision for what the future held, and the conviction that he was building was revolutionary. That didn't make him crazy. It made him able to do things inconceivable to other people. He said, this is where Bitfarms is today. Look out at the future of this industry with vision and conviction. We know what the future holds. We know the value of what we own. We know the value of what we're building. I'm bullish. Now, again, this is from the CEO of the company. And by the way, he's only been the CEO for a little over a year. I think maybe about 2 years now, 1.5, 2 years. And this is really important because he didn't just discover that they know what they own. Again, going back to the Riot deal, Riot wanted to buy the company for $2.30 a share when the company was, I think, trading at about $1.80 or $1.90. And Ben said no. The board said no. And there's not many CEOs that would say no to a deal like that, right? Let's get out. Let's just be acquired by another company. And they fought it, right? I mean, Riot Platforms bought 20% of Bitfarms and sued them. Basically like, no, you have to do this deal. You have to put us as a member of the board. And they did, but they didn't sell. They put them as a member of the board. So that Riot Platforms was able to guide the company in a certain type of way. Now, I don't know what happened, in those boardroom conversations and stuff like that, but to me, it seems like Bitfarms actually used Riot Platforms because Riot Platforms ended up exiting their position for the most part, not fully, but exited a large portion of their position earlier in 2025 in Bitfarms. And so to me, it's like they used Riot, like, hey, Riot, what should we do? What should we do? What should we do? And the Riot's like, well, you guys need to do this. You need to do this. You need to do this. And they're like, okay, great. We'll do that. Okay, great. We'll do that. And Riot was probably like, yeah, we're going to buy them. We're definitely going to buy them. We're definitely going to buy them. They didn't buy them. And once they started exiting their position in Bitfarms, it confirmed that Bitfarms was going to make it without Riot and didn't need Riot and still doesn't need Riot platforms. And so this is part of this whole thesis right here, that they know what the future holds, they know the value of what they own, and they know the value of what they're building. And regardless of where the short-term price movement is on Bitfarms, I am bullish, right? And if you're bullish, there's never a bad time to buy, whether we're higher or whether we're lower. I just believe that we are in an AI bubble. I do believe that AI in the aggregate is going to pull back. And because of that pullback, Bitfarms is not immune from that pullback. And this could put us back to the yearly lows that we were at, under $1. And I would rather buy back in at under $1 than buy back in at $3 or $5 or $6. Now, I may not be able to do that depending on where the market goes, but we on this channel follow the market on a regular basis every single day right here. So make sure, number one, you guys are subscribed. That way you never miss a new video. But this will also give us time to understand where we need to go, when we need to reinvest, and when the market understands how undervalued Bitfarms really is. Anyway, moving right along, I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts on Bitfarms, on MicroStrategy, on the digital asset treasury companies, and all the other things that we talk about on this channel every single day. See you guys in the next video. As always, thanks for watching.